Welcome to 4C Radio. We are broadcasting from the central campus of Christ University, Bengaluru. 4C Radio is brought to you by Department of Media Studies, Christ University. For all who are looking for a platform that focuses on communities, commons, climate, and communication, this is the place to be. What's more, the station is run by a diverse community of students and dedicated faculty members. Tune in to experience hard-hitting interviews, fact-check and myth-busting on-ground stories, campus news, and all the creative expressions of our community. This past month, even as Delhi woke up to yet another day of smog and frustration, the global conversation on the climate change was happening thousands of kilometers away in Belém, Brazil. World leaders gathered there for COP30, a summit that was expected to move from promises to real action. With more than 190 countries at the table, the discussions brought out sharp disagreements over fossil fuels, climate finance, and the responsibilities of developing nations like India. While the world hoped for clarity, the summit reflected how complex and unequal the fight against climate change still is. This report has been put together by our student reporter Shreya GA. Here's a closer look at what unfolded at COP30.
On November 24th, Delhi woke up to another day of thick polluted air and rising anger. Near India Gate, protesters demanding clean air clashed with police, and by the end of the morning, 22 people had been detained. According to the latest State of Global Air report, India now accounts for nearly 30% of all global deaths linked to air pollution. And while Delhi struggles with its local crisis, the world's governments have just wrapped up with the Global Climate Summit COP30 held in Belém, Brazil. Brazil had promised an implementation COP, a space focused on delivering action rather than negotiating new promises. More than 190 countries came together, and at the center of the tension was a familiar fight: whether the world should formally commit to phasing out fossil fuels. A coalition of around 90 countries, including many vulnerable island nations, pushed for a clear roadmap. But major fossil fuel producers, led by Saudi Arabia, resisted. India, too, opposed a fixed phase-out timeline, arguing that developing countries require more time, technology, and financial resources before making such commitments. In the end, the final agreement did not mention fossil fuel phase-out at all, a decision that angered many parties. More than 30 countries refused to sign the draft text. Colombia publicly objected, prompting the COP presidency to offer a 6-month review as a compromise.
In the past half hour, leaders at the COP30 climate summit in Brazil have agreed on a deal that ends the summit but fails to mention fossil fuels. Talks had been deadlocked over the issue and carried on hours after the summit was due to end. Oil-rich countries led by Saudi Arabia had lobbied for weaker wording on phasing out non-renewable energy sources. The EU said it would accept the deal but called it far from ideal.
India's position reflects its dual reality. The UNEP identified India as having recorded the largest absolute rise in global greenhouse gas emissions in 2024. Yet, India is also a climate-vulnerable developing country, insisting that wealthy nations must finally deliver the finance and technology they promised over a decade ago. One of the key outcomes was the development of a new Brazilian framework known as the Global Mushirao, inspired by a tradition of communities coming together to solve shared problems. This tradition brings together crucial issues like climate finance, transparency, and tracking the gap between current action and what is needed to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. India supported the final text, particularly the finance section, emphasizing that new burdens should not fall disproportionately on developing economies.
We appreciate the COP presidency for invoking the spirit of Motirao, as demonstrated especially in the last few days, for ensuring that all parties are consulted and a delicate balance is achieved on issues with some parties holding extreme positions.
On adaptation, countries finally agreed to triple adaptation finance, though the target year was pushed from 2030 to 2035. This funding is crucial for nations already facing heat waves, floods, forest loss, and rising sea levels. Forests also played a central role given the summit's Amazon setting. Brazil launched the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, a fund designed to compensate indigenous and local communities for protecting forests. It had already raised $5.5 billion with a target of reaching $125 billion. India has joined this facility as an observer. But COP30 also revealed a familiar imbalance. More than 5,000 indigenous people traveled to Belém, yet only 360 were allowed into the official negotiating zone. Meanwhile, around 1,600 delegates linked to the fossil fuels were accredited, a pattern that has been seen at several recent COPs. As COP30 closed, the world was left with a mix of progress and unresolved tension. The central question of how quickly countries will move away from fossil fuels remains unanswered. India will submit its revised Nationally Determined Contributions, that's NDC, a climate plan, along with its first biennial transparency report by the end of this year. These commitments will shape how India positions itself in the lead up to hosting COP33 and how global expectations translate into climate action at home.
So that's COP30, a summit that revealed both the urgency of the climate crisis and the limits of global cooperation. From finance gaps to disagreements over fossil fuels, it's clear that the world still has a long way to go before climate justice becomes a reality. And nowhere is this more visible than in India, a country caught between development needs and climate responsibilities, between global expectations and ground realities. Let's move now to India's emissions paradox. We have our student reporter Arnabi who will take us closer to the issue.
India just made headlines for an uncomfortable reason. According to the United Nations Environment Programme's Emission Gap Report 2025, India recorded the world's highest absolute increase in greenhouse gas emissions in 2024, adding 165 million tons of CO2 equivalent in just 1 year. That's more than any other nation, including China and the United Nations. But here's where the story gets interesting and complicated. The report positions India as the world's third largest overall emitter, yet India's per capita emissions stand at just 3 tons of CO2 equivalent, less than half the global average of 6.4 tons. Think about that for a moment. With over 1.4 billion people, India's average citizen produces far less carbon than the global average person. Global greenhouse gas emissions hit a record 57.7 gigatons in 2024. India's per capita emissions grew at 3.7% between 2023 and 2024, dramatically faster than the global average of just 0.04%. In terms of percentage growth, Indonesia topped the list at 4.6%, followed by India at 3.6%. So why is India's carbon footprint growing so rapidly? The answer lies in development. According to the report, fossil CO2 from coal, oil, and gas accounted for 69% of total global emissions in 2024. For India, coal remains king, powering industries and homes. According to the Press Information Bureau, as of September 2025, India's total installed electricity capacity reached 500 gigawatts, with over half from non-fossil fuel sources. India already achieved its major climate target of 50% non-fossil power capacity 5 years ahead of the 2030 deadline. That's remarkable progress. Yet the challenge is immense. The same economic growth that's lifting people out of poverty is also pushing emissions higher. The report warns that the world is now heading toward 2.8 degrees Celsius of warming by the century's end under the current policies, nearly double the 1.5 degrees Celsius Paris Agreement target. Even if all countries fully implement their national climate pledges, we are still on track for 2.3 to 2.5 degrees of warming. India has missed its September 30 deadline to submit its updated climate action plan, its nationally determined contribution, which put additional pressure on the country during the COP30 climate conference in Brazil. As Harjeet Singh, global climate activist and founding director of Satat Sampada Climate Foundation, told Down to Earth, the report confirms that India is caught in a climate justice trap. While the country's low per capita emissions are a moral high ground, its rising total emissions, lack of proper reporting, and non-submission of an NDC 3.0 put the country in a tight spot. The question isn't just about India, it's about fairness. How can 1.4 billion people access the energy and opportunities that wealthy nations have enjoyed for centuries without cooking the planet? The answer will shape not just India's future, but the whole world's.
India's emissions story shows us just how layered and complicated climate responsibility really is. It isn't simply about numbers or rankings, it's about people, sectors, histories, and the gaps between what countries can do and what they are expected to do. As India races forward with clean energy, struggles with coal dependence, and negotiates its place in global agreements, one thing becomes clear. Climate change is not just an abstract debate, It's a reminder that climate justice is not just about numbers, but about the people and the communities who feel the impact first. Our next story brings us to a very different kind of struggle, one unfolding on the streets of Bengaluru, where more than 2,000 rural women gathered in powerful united protest against illegal alcohol sales in their communities. These were farmers, daily wage earners, domestic workers, widows, and survivors of domestic violence, women who have spent years watching alcohol destroy families, drain wages, and threaten their safety. Their demands weren't just about law enforcement, they were about reclaiming their right to live without fear and about being heard by institutions that have ignored them for far too long. This on ground report has been produced by our student reporters Shinjini, Shovangi, Dunkan, and Nishtha. Let's listen to what unfolded at Freedom Park.
This is Freedom Park, Bengaluru, and what you're hearing is the sound of 2,000 rural women from across Karnataka protesting against illegal alcohol sales. The Madhya Nisheda Andolana raised their voice alongside survivors of domestic abuse and widows who lost their loved ones to alcohol. As 4C Media spoke to the protesters, moving tales of their harsh-lived realities emphasized the tragic power of alcoholism that they were agitating against.
The young ones are drinking and hitting their mothers and also hitting the women in the village. This is what they are doing. A small baby's life is ruined as he lost a finger because when his parents would fight, they would slam the door hard. We, from our village, Kerur, we are 9 of us all together.
These women have traveled more than 300 kilometers to demand decisive action. They are now rallying for empowerment of their communities at the grassroots and have urged the Karnataka government to give local governing bodies the power to open and close bars and liquor stores. Their tales of distress and loss of dignity echo with the Andolana that insists that alcohol be sold under strict regulations and only through establishments with full licenses. They are advocating for a complete prohibition on the sales of alcoholic beverages online, claiming that easy digital access has made dependency easier and regulation that much more challenging. The protesters have placed a report before the Chief Minister to grant more administrative powers to women in their village Gram Sabhas so that they can monitor the sales of alcohol and take action to prevent and respond to domestic violence in their communities. Lead organizer Suvarna Bhatt spoke to 4C Media explaining the need for the protest.
The protest is a struggle that has been ongoing for 10 years, and its ultimate goal is liquor prohibition. We know the Constitution grants the right to life in Article 21, but the government has snatched this right away. We also cite Article 47 of the Directive Principles, which states that a welfare state must gradually control and move towards prohibition. Instead, the government increases its income from liquor, even though studies like the one from Nimhans show the high costs of alcohol-related issues like domestic violence, health, and social security, indicating a value gap and immorality. The entire burden of the family, because of alcoholism in men, has been placed on women. In every house, the son, the husband, and father-in-law may be drinkers. Many women have taken loans from 7 different microfinance companies just to survive. We are not allowing men to participate because women are the sufferers. Our specific policy demand is that the law, through the RDP and R Act, must be changed to allow a minimum of 20% of women in a Gram Sabha to veto a liquor license in their panchayat limits, giving power to the women. We do not want the government's immoral income. We talk about poverty and oppression, not their income.
Dr. Ramesh Belamakonda, a medical practitioner and researcher, commented on how the effects of alcohol are largely invisible until it's too late. In his opinion, alcohol controls the people that succumb to it rather than the opposite. Access to relevant research on its effects stays confined to urban spaces. He believes the only way to reduce the rampant use of alcohol is to make the research presentable and accessible to the rural sections in the ways the people can comprehend.
Our villagers have all been drinking constantly, and because of this, our households and homes are all ruined and suffering. Great injustice is happening to us. Our village men are now even selling their wives' bangles and Mangalsutras to drink.
The domino effect of alcoholism runs down several generations, affecting thousands of families. Often, it leaves women without livelihoods and income, alone and distraught, and in many cases at the risk of domestic violence.
Today we have decided do or die. We will not go home empty handed. We have two key demands. Two related ministers must come here and give an assurance that they will place our demands before the cabinet. A commission of representatives from all organized bodies must be called for a discussion with us.
This fight is not simply a list of demands. It is one that vows to reclaim their lost dignity, independence, and agency.
The protest is a reminder of how certain communities have been overlooked and unheard. These women stood not just against illegal liquor shops, but against systems that failed to protect them. From the streets of Freedom Park, we shift the gear towards a story of victory, where another kind of determination has been folding on our own campus. The Christ University boys Kho Kho team recently secured a major national victory, marking an important moment not just for the players, but for a sport that often remains in the shadows. Behind this win are the countless early mornings, tight training schedules, academic pressures, and the bond between seniors and newcomers. It's a story of passion, meeting discipline, and of a team that didn't just play to win, but played to grow, adapt, and prove themselves at the highest level. This sports feature has been reported by our student journalist, Steffy Christina. Let's listen to it.
Since the first ever victory in Women's World Cup, Indian sports enthusiasts have been elated. A win on the field is always something special, not just for players, but also everyone around. Here, at the university level, the Christ University boys Kho Kho team marked a major improvement of their own with a victory at the national tournament conducted by the Indian Federation for All Games. A strong step forward for the team and the sport. The head of the Department of Physical Education, Soumya Joseph, shared her thoughts.
The Department of Physical Education is always look for the improvement or the performance of the athletes, and so always we want to reach out the players and give the best coaching to them and make sure that they'll win in all the tournaments. And of course, the aim of the Physical Education Department is to make sure that every student who is undergoing practices and training with us want to make sure that they will excel the high performance in national and international levels.
Expectations have been high and the results have kept pace. The coach Dhanraj L reflected on the win and the daily work behind it.
When the team won, every coaches feel proud. So that is our aim.
Yeah.
So why we are doing practice means because of the tournaments.
The team captain Dhanush P, 6PCOM F, spoke about what it felt like to stand on the court, wearing Karnataka's colours.
It was great to have an opportunity to play for Karnataka. More than game, we had memories and good experience for my teammates. The difficult part was our defense, but still we made it through chase.
Coach Dhanraj explained how the team structure is built step by step.
The first practice session means we are starting our team. So when the college reopen, we are welcome back again everyone.
Yeah.
All are their seniors or all are their newly came. So for them we are talking each other. First we are preparing our team. The bonding is there.
He also spoke about one of the major challenges they face.
Practice matches, practice time means, compared to our college, right? Our college, no timing here proper. Only they are giving more preference, only education. So they are missing classes means again they are getting the burden. Then apart that, what is that? Attendance also. If they lose attendance, that is also minus point.
He emphasized the importance of consistency in training.
So not only in the Kho Kho, so every games they require that, so regularity. If they come regularly, if they do practice sessions, they can understand what is their mistakes. We can rectify, easily find out, we can clarify that one. They can develop where they're going down. In that place, if you stand there, if you analyze, you can do motivate. If you move forward, definitely they are winner for the future.
If there's one lesson in this story, it is this: wins don't happen under bright lights and loud applause. They're built from 5 a.m. practices, sacrificed weekends, quiet discipline, and tiny improvements that no one sees except the team living them.
Good. Don't go outside. Move nearby player.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. We walked through 4 different stories, from the global discussions at COP30 to India's own emissions challenge to a major public protest here in Bengaluru, and finally a national win on our campus sports field. Each of these stories show a different side of how policies, people, and institutions shape our everyday realities, whether it's climate decisions made abroad, development pressures at home, community responses to local issues, or the achievements happening right here at Christ University. Together, they remind us that the world around us is constantly shifting, and there's always something new to understand, question, and explore. There are plenty more untold stories waiting around the corner, from the commons to the campus, from the climate to the community. This episode was edited by Srinivas Aditya and Guru Aditya, illustrated by Vernika Singh, and I'm Rishika Bhatt, signing off for now. Please write to us and follow us on Instagram and X. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and always ask questions. 4C Radio is an initiative by the Department of Media Studies, Christ University, Bengaluru.